Today's Chasing Tomorrow podcast. By the way, time's flown by. Joe and I started this a couple months ago, and it just seems like it was yesterday that we got going. So if you guys are enjoying this, share it, like it, follow our podcast, and tell all your friends about it. And especially tell them about today's guest, because we have the absolute pleasure of having Gary Cantrell, who is also known as Lazarus Lake. I know everybody knows Lazarus Lake. Very few people know the name Gary Cantrell. And he's the most iconic race director in ultramarathon running history, being the race director of Barkley Marathons, Big's Backyard, Strolling Jim, and Vol State. There's a lot going on with this guy. I mean, this guy can end up making runners like myself and many other ultra-runners all over the world throw our buckets down into our well and digging up whatever's left within that well. We love going to his races and seeing what we can put out on his courses, and I can't wait to dig in a little bit deeper with my friend Gary and finding out who is this guy and why he does what he does. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce this week's guest, the diabolical Lazarus Lake. Welcome, Laz.
I'm glad to be here.
That's awesome. So tell me, did you go for a hike today? Did you go for a walk in the woods?
I only went out and did 8 miles this morning. This is my short day. I'm on a schedule and I stick to it pretty close.
Absolutely. And the reason why I ask is because you are partaking in your own virtual race right now, right? You're partaking in the virtual run across Tennessee, and you've already crossed Tennessee, but now you're doing the 1,000 miles. Is that right?
I am on my way back to the 1,000-mile mark. I convinced everyone that part of my job was to be a moving target for the runners. And I was just going to try to do the 1,000 kilometers. People were trying to beat me. So I keep having to step it up a little more because the people that are immediately around me start to bother me. They have bad intentions.
So, well, yeah, and I understand why they're trying to beat you, Laz, because number one, you're an icon. Number two, wasn't it 2 years ago you walked all the way across America? Is that right?
I did. That was a fun thing. Everyone should do it, but everyone should not wait until they're old.
How many miles did you do for that run?
Was something over 3,300 miles. Doesn't sound like much, but it's really pretty far.
It actually does sound like a lot. And how many days did it take?
It took me 120 days. That's why you don't wait till you're old, because it takes you a really long time and it's that much harder than it would have been.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, no doubt. So, Laz, do you know how many people have crossed America on foot?
I don't know, but I want to say it's definitely in the hundreds. It could be over 1,000 by now. When you see the map and there's an ocean on one side and an ocean on the other, so you're almost compelled.
Absolutely.
It cries out to be done.
No doubt.
Is there a specific route that you did, Laz?
I basically followed US 20.
Okay.
There were a lot of shortcuts. There was a lot of going around parts of it that couldn't be done on foot. I ended up traveling everything from open range to interstate highways out west, because you kind of have to piece together where you can go. Had some real adventures getting through places where that if I didn't get across, then it would be a 10 or 15 mile detour, and on foot that's huge.
Huge, absolutely. You bet. So let's back up a little bit, Laz, because I feel like I'm doing a bit of a disservice by not, I'm assuming that everybody that clicks onto our podcast knows who you are. But let's talk about your two big races that you put on. Gary, how long has the Barkley Marathons been going on? Is it 35 years now?
I always count the first one as 1985 because that's when me and Raw Dog hiked the loop to see if it could be done.
Right. And so if anybody...
1986 when other people came.
Right. So you were the first finisher.
I was the first finisher. The first year, I'm pretty sure I was the only one. Well, me and Gary Buffington that went with me were the only ones that did an absolutely correct first loop.
Absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about Barkley Marathons and Big's Backyard, because Strolling Jim, Vol State, all the other races that you put on, and I think that I'm gonna kind of put them all together here in a little bit. But Barkley Marathons, you end up doing 5 loops, and you have to go one way and then back the other and back this way, and each loop is roughly 25 miles or so.
No, it's a 20-mile loop, 20.00.
20.00. But I've also been told that you kind of throw in some Laz credit as well too. It might be a little bit further than that. Is that true?
If you're inefficient, it's like any run. If you're not on the target, then you might add some extra miles of your own.
Right. So you're saying that there's a tangent that you need to run, but it's almost impossible to run the tangent.
I can do it.
Like yeah, I'm sure you could. I'm sure you might be the only one, or John Kelly and others. But so yeah. So the Barkley Marathons is how many runners have completed the race in the race's history?
There's the team unique individuals have completed it 18 times total.
That's
one
incredible.
guy did it twice, and Jared Campbell has done it 3 times. He's
legend. Absolutely. And so this is, in my opinion, and I run ultra endurance events, for fun. This is where I eat. This race scares the hell out of me, and I don't want any part of it. And so it's an intimidating event, absolutely, to say the least. And so, Gary, what you do is you create events like this, Big's Backyard, where you have to run 4.18 miles around your literal backyard, and because you've got a dog named Big Dog, and you have to run around his backyard.
Yes.
4.18 miles every hour until you can't, and there's one winner, and everybody else DFs. You put it all together, Strolling Jim, Vol State, all these other races. And Laz, what I see is that you're creating these events that really pins athletes, runners, against themselves. So tell us more about that. I mean, we see a commonality with all these races. Why are you so perfect at creating these races? I've seen other people trying to, but you're very unique.
I don't know about perfect, but your objective is to give, and when you put on an event, you want to give the runners an opportunity to find the greatness that's in themselves. So really the key is to remember that your role, you're not important. The race is about the runners. And we've been lucky enough that really good runners have come and tried. And like in the Barkley, the list of people who haven't made it is really impressive.
Absolutely.
And it should be enough for anyone with good sense to look at it and say, yeah, I don't know about that.
Absolutely. But every year people, sign up. They want to desperately go and have their rear ends handed to them.
Some of them want to, and some of them think they want to. And there's a lot of, because the time is so long and compared to the distance, people get it in their mind that it's just a really long, low level effort. And what they don't grasp is the layout of the course. It's a really long effort, right as close as you can keep the needle to the red line without having something blow up or catch fire.
Right.
Gary, it strikes me that
I have a dog in forbidden territory. Little, get out there.
We have this intersection between curiosity and courage that drives people to go do big things. Do you think that that's a bit of a good way of thinking about the people who want to come do a Barkley's or a Big Backyard?
Well, like I say, a lot of them are ill-advised on the Barkley. The Big Backyard, though, that one is more about what is your knowledge of yourself. Because I originally kind of thought what would happen is people would run until they could run no more. But the 4.1667 miles in an hour is really not that hard to do. But if you do it long enough, it's not that pleasant to do anymore. And people quit when they no longer believe they can win. Because one finisher, that's the winner. And once you decide that there's somebody out there you can't beat, then to continue to abuse yourself makes no sense. So it's a very introspective event. People spend a lot of time finding out what's inside. Absolutely.
I couldn't agree more. I was at Big's Backyard last year, Laz, with you, and everybody looked so good, and then they would disappear, and I wondered, that guy looked so great. Where did he go? And it just seemed like everybody was doing so well, and then they didn't believe that they could go on, or things got, like you said, it's easy until it's not, right?
You also can't show a sign of weakness because it's all about man against man. So where most ultras, you hear a lot of people talking about all the agonizing things they're going through. Their stomach is wrong. They've got blisters. Their feet hurt. Their knees are screwed. Their hips are coming out. Someone took their hips out and put them back in on the wrong side. But you don't hear any of that at the backyard ultra, because all you're hoping for is to look at that next guy and see some weakness, to see, oh, he's hurt. He's hurt. So everyone is not hurting until suddenly they quit. And you say, what happened? You were doing great. I've been dying for hours.
Absolutely. Yeah, and Laz, just to give you a little bit of, one of my, games that I was playing with the other runners, I ended up in third place, although there is no third place. It's a DNF where you win, isn't it? But I ran, yeah, exactly. That's it. So I ran 52 hours in your yard last year. And I had a waist light, and I had a waist light on very specifically because I didn't want to be seen that I was looking behind me and seeing where everybody was. So they wouldn't see my head turning around, but I was looking behind me all the bloody time, and I didn't want them to know that. And so I think that we were all playing games with one another out there. It's funny. It's funny like that. But you were saying one thing earlier about backyard, and that, you end up building this beautiful fire at night. And when people would drop out during the night, a lot of people drop out during the night because it's monotonous and boring on that road. They would end up going over to the fire and standing there and look at the fire. And within 5 minutes, they would shake their head knowing that they had another one in them, that they were regretting dropping out. Could you talk about that a little bit more?
That's a lot of what happens. It's a lot of what happens at the Barkley, and it's a lot of what happens at Biggs. It feels so bad at the moment, but when the pain stops, when you just have a little chance to rest, you realize, oh, I wasn't near the end at all. It's matter of fact, the same phenomenon in Vol State, which is a self-supported run, 500 kilometers across 5 states. And people, they're out there and they hurt so bad, and they've been gone so long, and they call for a ride. Someone has to come and get them. And you intentionally let them wait, because a lot of times they have to get themselves somewhere. You're not going to sit on the side of the road when it's 103 degrees and wait for, 2 hour 12 for someone to come by. And they get in somewhere, get a little air conditioned a while, and they call you and say, scratch the pickup. I think I'm going on.
Yeah, no, that's good.
We've let people sit for long periods of time because they get within 10 or 12 miles of the end, and your mind is so shot, and they're calling for a quit. You say, okay, we'll be there later, and you just leave them there. And then eventually they call and say, well, I'm not going to sit here anymore. They're sitting on a guardrail beside the road. So they say, I'm not going to sit on this guardrail anymore. I'm just going to start walking on, and you can meet me, when you come to get me. And so you wait your timing until they're coming up the last hill with 3 miles to go, and you go out and say, do you want that ride? And well, I don't know what kind of audience you have, but you can imagine what the response usually, no, not now.
So good.
Well, one of the things I'm really curious about, Dave's certainly a professional ultra runner. I'm a wannabe, have done my fair share of some good long distance. You've been looking at applications and runners for almost 35 years. Can you tell from the application who might be better at finishing or doing well at Barkley's, or learning something from that so you can pick the right people? Or
learning from it to pick the right people is good. There's an essay to get into the Barkley, and it's not something you just blow off. I look at the essays, and you can pare it down pretty well by what they write. And before you ask the obvious question, what's in the winning essay? Now, if I told you that, then I would have all that essay.
Yeah. Oh no, I'm actually not looking for the secret as much as I love when you get to see a lot of data in life, because patterns form. And I'm just wondering if you're seeing good patterns, and you'd almost predict, even though you select people, you could sort of tell before how well they'll do.
There's a whole set of characteristics, and they're the same for people that are good at anything, which is probably why the people that have done well in the Barkley are very successful people.
Yep.
And there's a whole number of characteristics that go into that. One of the ones I've been thinking about is accountability, looking at the 19,000 runners on the the race across Tennessee, and we have people that they just can't do the distance entry on a regular basis. They just can't get their distance in every day, and they contact you because they get so far behind. Now there's some huge number they want to put in, and you can't do that because all these people are out there putting in their mileages, and everyone's really racing. You know who's around you, and you're watching what they're doing every day. And if they're stuck in New Zealand where they have to run before you every day, you can look and see what they put in the tracker, so you can from each time. And they say, well, I was doing really good until the last week or so, and but we have access to all the records, and you look and you can see they did 2 weeks good, and then they started missing, and they missed more and more, and then it finally got so bad that now they can't get it to go in. And I thought, do they not realize that I can see what's actually happened? And I realized, well, no, it's about the way people see accountability. We all want our kids to be accountable. So as parents, we make them accountable to us, and then they're accountable to their teachers. They're accountable to their coach. They're accountable to their boss. But none of that helps you to succeed. What you want to be accountable to is your success, yourself. My poor kids, when they brought home their report card, I told them, that's your report card. Anything you do is a portrait of you. That's not my report card. You want to bring it, you bring it in, I'll sign it, you can take it back because it's not my grades. And they all did well. And I think where these people are, you start thinking, if I get something that my mom will believe, or if I get something my will accept as an excuse, then it's okay. You shouldn't be making excuses to anybody but yourself. When you have an issue, the first thing you should ask is not who's to blame or why is this not my fault? It's what can I do to fix it? What can I do to make it right? What can I do to make it not happen again?
Isn't that the truth, Laz? Is that out there on the course in either Barkley or Vol State or Biggs backyard, you're presented with a lot of opportunity to fix things on the fly and hold yourself accountable for whatever actions were taking place, running a lap too quickly or whatever that was. So do you find that it's those people that take accountability, like guys like Will Hayward last year at Biggs, who you didn't see him doing? I didn't think he was going to do well at all because he looked like a train wreck from the beginning. But
we
the guy
ended him off at 24 hours. He's the next guy out.
I did, absolutely, and he ended up running 59 hours and gave Maggie the assist. It's incredible. And so you think a lot of it's really accountability and holding yourself personally accountable.
It's who you think you're accountable to. If you're out there and you're dying and you think, if I tell them that my hip is gone, that'll be a reason I stopped. Well, you've halfway lost right there. It doesn't matter what anybody else thinks. You're not accountable to anybody. You're only accountable to yourself. So you ask yourself, can I make this hip go? Can I make this hip go one more lap? Is there something I can do to fix it? Can I alter my stride where there's a little less stress without breaking something else down?
Right. Absolutely.
And it's actually liberating to think that way.
I think it is. Certainly, when Dave and I constructed this podcast, part of what, we were looking for is this idea that if you understand some people, they go from what would seem to be ordinary to extraordinary. And because we're all sort of ordinary in our own way, it's the actions we take, it's this accountability that allows us to be extraordinary. But most people don't really fully understand the why they're doing it, or they use words like I'm stubborn, or I don't like to quit. But you're sort of redefining it, which is that you're taking responsibility for your own actions, and you then can determine sort of where that brings you in life. And so I guess where I would take that is when you started off as a race director and you concocted these pretty amazing challenges, did you ever sort of think about that this was when you were going to find out is these kinds of life lessons versus an athletic event?
When you set them up to challenge you look from all the years in coaching, when you're preparing your teams to play, you have all of the physical stuff, the drills and the skills and the mental part with the teamwork and stuff, but you also look for ways in practice to subject them to stress, to the different things that cause you to fail. so that you can help them to master the techniques for dealing with these issues, or simply to get where that they can handle it. Uncertainty is the hardest thing for an athlete to handle. It's one of the things, and I'm sure Dave will tell you, one thing that makes the bigs so hard is not knowing when it'll end. It'll end at, I think the longest one was 68 hours. And I looked at the field of runners who were there, and I felt absolutely positive. If we had told them going in it was 72 hours, there was a minimum of 5 people that would have made it. But to go another loop, when that could be the loop that went, or you could run another 15 hours and still be right where you are. That's not easy to take.
That's not easy to
when
take.
When you're coaching basketball, it's the officials are something you can't control. You can't actually, I guess I could say now, you can prepare yourself and play in such a way that you reduce the number of fouls you get, but you don't ever have control. When the whistle blows, it could be absolutely right, it could be absolutely wrong. And that's one of the hardest things basketball players have to learn how to deal with is the officiating. You see players that just can't deal with that. The Barkley is all about uncertainty. You don't know where the course is. You don't know when the race starts. You don't know what order the clockwise and counterclockwise loops are coming. And of course, these are big time planners, and they have to start planning an hour before the race.
Absolutely. Well, let's talk about whistles for a second, because I remember, we flew you up to Canada, and you helped race direct a race that we had up in Alberta, a backyard race, the Outrun backyard race. And I remember you told me when you arrived here, you said, the hardest part of the backyard race is the 6 feet between your chair and the start line. You run 20 hours, 40 hours, whatever it is, and you sit down, you take in that comfort. And it's hard to get up and go and do another one. Now it was well too, and one thing to allude to add to that, one thing you did bring up, Laz, as well too. He said with a 3-minute warning, you blow 3 whistles, 2-minute warning, 2 whistles, 1-minute warning, 1 whistle, and you really kind of enjoy blowing that whistle and looking around and seeing who just kind of cowers, who shudders a little bit, right? Because what you told me there was that everybody responds to stress. And that stimulus differently. Some people are eager to get out and back on the course, and other ones, they shudder. Tell us more about that, and then some of your experiences when it comes to that.
The very first backyard ultra we held was when we first started finding out about the whistle. Dave may not tell you this, but he probably still has an adverse reaction when he hears a whistle. Post-traumatic whistle disorder.
We're going to have to work on that one.
Well, we got the 4th hour. You start out and you blow the whistles. Everybody lines up. It's a big joke. You do it again the second time. And it was only 4 hours in, and I blew the 3 whistles. And everyone's sitting there in their chairs, and this moan comes up. Oh, the whistles come way too fast. If you're waiting to blow the whistle, it's all you can do to keep your attention on the watch long enough to blow it at the right time. But for the runners in the chair, the time between getting back and the 3 whistles seems like a minute. Mm-hmm. And between 3 and 2 seems like 15 seconds. For them, the whistles are coming way too soon.
Absolutely.
So they hate it. They discuss doing things to your whistle out on the course. I'm probably not supposed to know this, but I know this. Did I not also tell you the whistle has to have a lanyard? You have to keep it around your neck. You want to put it in your shirt so someone can't
grab it from you.
Or hang it with
Never set it down. You'll never see it again.
That's right.
It's fascinating because in some sense you've gone beyond race director into psychologist, and you have really started to study how people think, react. They're the guys who do this alongside you are the Navy SEALs. They love to put you in a situation that you think is unfair. And so they'll go in your room and mess all your clothes up and say, why'd you leave a mess? And you didn't, and you just have to clean it up. They're just looking for how you react, which is part of what you're doing with this group of highly talented athletes. How do you react to these stresses? And that is more important, right, than the physical piece of it.
I've always been interested in what don't you look when you see people are equally matched? Why does one win and one not? And then as a coach, you're looking at what are the things you can do to make your team better prepared to win. And talking about things that are unfair, one of the things you do in practice, you set up unfair contests. You put kids love when you have contests in practice, but sometimes you set them up where they can't win. And what you're looking for is to develop the point where they throw that factor away. They compete the best they can without blinking, even knowing they can't win.
Right. Yeah. It certainly feels like you can carry away from these experiences something that would help you in life in general, right? Work, family, dealing with a pandemic, learning that maybe you can't control everything.
They always say that the lessons of sports are the lessons of life, and I really believe that. That was, you coach in a small high school, and the coaches that I worked with over the years, it was always the same. You were preparing the kids for life. Games are exciting. The games are fun. You want to win. You don't even pretend for a second. Don't love the competition and love to win. But at the end of the day, the kids come in as freshmen. They're 13 or 14 years old. They're just kids. And when they leave, they're 18 and 19, and they're young men. And you like to look at the guy leaving and saying, he's equipped for the things he's going to deal with.
Yeah,
absolutely. Well, so let's talk a little bit about 20. I mean, life is very different. The two of you are in America. I'm up here in Canada. But really, this is a global pandemic that we're in right now, and everybody's adapting. And a community leader like yourself, Laz, what you've done is you've done an incredible job of creating opportunities for people to go out and test their endurance and test what they're made of. What's great about backyard is, 3 laps might be your personal best, but you can go do 4 the next time. But what's wonderful about watching you in this time is you ended up creating this virtual run across Tennessee. And I think you were saying, Laz, offline that this run was really developed for an audience of maybe 200, 300 people, and I think it's over 20,000 people now, that including myself.
It's like 19,500 and some people.
Wow, that's incredible.
Unreal.
And when I go onto the Facebook group that you've created with this virtual run across Tennessee, I see an incredible group of people that are posting on there I don't even know how many bloody posts there are. It's incredible. People that are looking for community so that people can get out every single day. And I think that if you end up running the minimum in order to get across Tennessee, I think it's right around 5 miles a day, isn't it? Is that right?
Yeah, it was, I want to say 5.2, 5.3, somewhere in there. It's not a hugely demanding thing for someone that runs or that runs a lot or has run competitively. But for the majority of the people that signed up, I was amazed at who all we got there, just regular people. And this was, a lot of them, it was beyond their scope at the beginning. So seeing who the audience was, I've been doing my coaching tips as they went along. Early on, I told them, I happened to have a convenient 4-month period where I went from nothing and covered 1,000 kilometers, even though for the first 2 months, I never made the average. I was losing distance the whole way, and talked about how while you're getting in shape, you can give ground. This is, you have to go out every day so you don't give zeros. You give away too much. But if you're getting something, you can stay in there. And the way people have responded to it, I think they were just looking for an opportunity. I think most people are, there's a little greatness in everybody, and they're just looking for the opportunity for it to come out.
Absolutely, and people like yourself to create that stage for them. I think it's wonderful. I see so many people that are blowing away their expectations of I'm getting out every day and I'm doing 10 miles, and it's really quite neat. It's really quite a cool thing that you've started.
Yeah,
but they did all the work.
They did do all the work. Absolutely, yeah.
You bring such a good attitude, Gary, to everything that you do in our sport of ultra running. You have built a brand for yourself. You're well known pretty much by everyone, but you haven't, and this might be one of those, I'd love to hear the truth here, is you've never sort of sold out to the big name, sponsors or brought in too many people into the races, commercialized it too much. You've stayed true to what you started. Tell us a little bit about that. Is that hard to do? Are you happy to stay the way you are? Will it change?
Well, look at me. What corporation would does this look like the image you want to portray?
I don't know.
I think so.
We like it.
I enjoy, the objective is what I'm getting out of it. And it's like this, the run across Tennessee has been maybe the most rewarding thing I've ever done. Well, definitely the most rewarding because of the number of people that have really gotten some out of it. And they write letters when they finish, and I send the finish email out, and they'll respond back and talk about what's going on or how the race was for them and the things that they got out of it. It's been a positive thing. But if you look at the Facebook group, it doesn't require what it did, but at first it wanted to be like every Facebook group, and we simply just didn't allow it. We removed it, and we lost some people because there's no politics in there, and there's none of this and none of that. Learned a lot about people, developed a great respect for anyone who deals with social media for a living, especially if they're moderating something.
Yeah.
Really, you lose the people that's what they're in there for.
Right.
And well, wait, you hate losing people, but it wasn't really a loss. They just want to get on to trash people and talk negative, or they want to get on for fruitless, pointless political, you can't say discussion since everybody yells the same thing. They yell the same thing every time, everywhere, and nobody listens. So it's just pointless. It just trashes up the space. Mm-hmm. And the people that gravitated to it, hey, it's a free place. It's a place where none of that exists. We're not going to talk about all these things. We'll just talk about trying to run 500 or 1,000, trying to get through the days and taking care of our blisters and how do we work it into our schedule. And
I remember like a couple of years ago, we were talking about, the entry into Big's backyard. And I think I ended up telling you, I said, all these other races are charging 3, 4, 7 times the amount that you are. And you could easily charge that amount and people will still be flocking to come to your race. And I remember you told me, you said, well, Dave, it's a fair market value for what I'm offering. And I always remember that because it's just so true. It's wonderful, but it's you're right. You're providing that value, and it's so nice to see in a world where everybody's trying to make a buck. And you're creating you're harvesting all these experiences and creating all these opportunities. It's really nice to see.
It's the fun part. The one across Tennessee, we probably, and they would kill me for saying it, but the closer we get to the end, I think we're going to be able to raise $250,000 for the food banks.
That's wonderful.
Wow. And we've definitely got over $25,000 for animal shelters. I don't know, because of the demand for souvenir stuff and the insistence of people that I'm an idiot if I just let people freelance and sell souvenirs and don't have a license fee, we set up some approved souvenir stores that sell race products and charge them a license fee, and just sent the entirety of the license fee is going to a charity. It's one for child slavery in India because Naresh is one of our workers and that's a cause that's dear to him. Probably should have checked to make sure that it's against child slavery and not for it.
Good idea.
That's great, lads. Absolutely. No, it's good. I love to see that and it's no surprise to any one of our listeners that you're doing good with all of this. This is great. But let's jump a little bit ahead to, hey, we're in a pandemic. I've got a race bib at your race in October. But, I just don't think that Big's backyard is going to be happening this year. Number one, in Canada, I don't think that I'm allowed to travel down to the United States. And once I'm in the States, I don't think I'm allowed to travel back to Canada come October. So you and I have been talking offline for a couple of weeks now about some ideas in regards to Big's backyard. Do you want to talk about Big's backyard a little bit?
I think we have a pretty exciting plan. It's not quite a virtual event, although it has that aspect to it. We're putting together satellite events. And then really the events are competing against each other. There's about a dozen countries, and you don't know, there's another one or two that might try to get in. Of course, any of the ones that are in, the way things are right now, they could have a flare up and disappear the day before the race. We're going to try to do it over the internet like y'all have mastered with your races, and keep a single scorecard, but each race is also an independent entity. You'll have a real race with everybody there head to head and a winner, but they're also scoring simultaneously. So in the Canadian race will be essentially a Canadian team, and the U.S. race will be a U.S. team, and somebody's team is going to win. Somebody's team will be the last team standing, but it takes two to be the last team standing. So the assist guy, who always gets full credit because everybody's a DNF but the winner, but the assist guy is the only reason the winner got as far as he got. He could not have done it. All competition, you can never be but as good as your opponent's men, and we legislate that in the backyard. So it's really going to be down. It's going to take two Canadians. You could have the greatest guy in the world capable of going 100 hours, but if all the other Canadians stop at 23, which I've heard is likely.
Absolutely. I'll take that challenge. Yeah. So last, so what I've been doing up here in Canada, and I don't mind telling our audience. So I'm captaining the team up in Canada. We're going to be running it out from Alberta, and we're going to be racing against your team and down in Belle Buck, Tennessee, and others all around the world. And we've got a pretty stacked team up here in Canada. And I've been calling around to all of Canada's best ultramarathoners, and 80% of them are saying, hey, I'm in. Where do I sign up? And so I've been telling them, it takes two to go long.
I think I'm going to have to figure out who to root for. I'm going to have to root for the Americans or my Canadian friend here. I don't know. It's going to be a little bit difficult.
Well, and that's going to be what's wonderful. Let's say there's 3 or 4 countries left in the game. And let's say I'm going to be myself in Canada and another individual who's running. I'm going to be looking over to that other person saying, you know what, we got to go hard together. We got to go long because we got to beat the Norwegians, or we got to beat the New Zealand team, or you know what, we got to beat America. It's going to be tough to take America down, though. Got to say.
The Swedes are scary. The Swedes have got, and the Germans have got a good team, and you never can underestimate the Germans.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And the French, you can't trust the French.
Right.
They haven't had a lot of backyards, but they put up some big numbers in the ones they have.
Yeah,
right. Absolutely. And I'll be honest with you, Laz. When it comes to the backyard that we're having here, probably half the runners have no backyard experience, but they've got big 200-mile experience plus. And so there's a couple tough noodles that we're going to be bringing out to our event that I could see going super, super long on a backyard style event when they're motivated.
It's all adjusting to having to start every hour. It's having to deliberately start inflicting the pain. There's something that makes it just easier if you just start once and then you just finish it. But you have to finish it and do it again and do it again and do it again. Every hour you got to get out of that chair and walk to the starting line.
Right.
And that's where we looked at the driveway and how the gravel kind of humps up at the side from all the years of cars going on it. We decided maybe that mound is a lot bigger than it looks, because it appears it's only an inch or two tall, but people are having a hard time getting across it to start. So we're going to try to rake that thing down flat.
That's great. You're making your course easier so owners have to run further. I love it.
This is good.
So what's of Big's Backyard Pandemic? Is it called Big's Backyard Pandemic Edition?
Yeah, well, probably needs a name like that. I just was calling it Big's Backyard Ultra.
Yeah, perfect.
We don't want him to know that all those people aren't going to come for him to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And so
October still?
October 17th, same day. We'll move the starting time back to 7 o'clock to make it simpler so that everyone all over the world is starting on an even hour, although only a few of us will be, maybe only will be 7 o'clock. And then we'll switch from doing 12 on road trail and 12 on road to 11 on trail and 13 on road, because the last hour would get pitch black and all the Americans would be lost in the woods.
It gets dark on your course. You bet. Absolutely. Yeah. And so, and as well too, Laz, one thing I want to mention is that, you brought it up to us because I'm a race organizer with Gather Virtual up here in Canada. We've ended up putting on the last 2 quarantine backyards, and we broadcasted them. And the last broadcast, I think, went really quite well. And so we're hoping to broadcast all of this and be able to put it online so that people could end up watching and see a broadcast where we go off to Germany and we go off to France. We do all of those things so we can end up making it a lot more pleasing for the audience, and so they can keep up with the updates and on and so forth in real time.
I think it's going to be a pretty exciting thing to watch because you got, the different countries competing against each other in a form of a world championship. It'll be, I guess the runners will also count for their own nationality. I think looking at the people we have, we'll probably have a Belarusian in the American contingent. He'll be part of the American team, but if he ended up winning the whole thing, then I guess it would be a victory for Belarus as an individual.
Absolutely.
And I know Ireland's got a team, but I don't think England's going to be able to pull one off. So there will probably be some of the good English runners in Ireland.
You bet.
If they can make the cut. The Irish are another group that's got some pretty tough guys.
So again, Laz, we talk about Barkley, we talk about Big's Backyard, Vol State. We think of all these unique ways that you're going out and creating all these opportunities for this community of runners to go and push themselves to new endurance feats. And again, during this time of quarantine all over the world, here you are doing it again. And, you're thinking, well, we can't gather, it's irresponsible for me in Canada to fly down to Tennessee and bring whatever I'm bringing down to you, or you give me and I'll bring back to my country. It's good for us all to kind of stay put at this time. So here you are again, going out and being a community leader and creating these opportunities for everybody to go and do this in a safe way. I think I'm really super stoked about this opportunity.
Yeah. When you go through life with limited ability, you become a master at running into an obstacle and then finding a way around it. The combination of not being very good but being stubborn.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I think that, we all benefit when, people who start off with sort of that humble, heart become leaders. What happens is we get good outcomes for all who participate because it's not about you, then it's about them. And that's a transition that we think we need more to have happen in this world, which is that we're in service to others rather than to, ourselves. And then we can create these magical experiences. And, I like to think that we don't need to ask for permission to live a big life. And you didn't ask anyone for permission to go put on these races. You just decided. And we thank you for that. That's just maybe one towards the end of us. The last question is like, before we get into what's tomorrow for you, did you ever sort of envision this for yourself? I mean, does this organically happen? And how did it, how'd you get here? Like
my athletic career is I think it's a lesson for I grew up in Norman, Oklahoma, and was around the football team all the time. Loved football. Family of football fans. I wanted to be a great football player more than anything in the world. And my sophomore year of high school, I realized that 5 feet tall and 7 pounds and not fast. Football opportunities were limited. And I looked for any sport I could be in. I want to be in some sport. I had a sports-oriented family. But even wrestling, the lightest weight division, I was 20 pounds too light. And that's huge. So the only choice was really running. That was for someone my size. So that said, I wanted to be a great runner. And I was not fast. I went to longer and longer distances trying to find the place I would be great. I finally got to the point I wanted to run an ultra, which eventually I found out I was also not great at. And the only way to have one, though, at that time, this was in the 70s, there wasn't an ultra within 1,000 miles of me. So the only way to have one was to put one on.
Yep.
I found that I had more success putting on races than I did as a runner. And so you just you keep hitting the wall and find a new route. And you always get what you need, but you don't always get what you want. If I'd been any of the things I wanted to be along the way, my career would have been over for a decade. And now I ended up with something that my age and physical handicaps don't make any difference at all. So all of my bad luck was good luck. You just have to take what's available to you and make the most of it.
Well, you've certainly done that, that's for sure. And we're all benefit from that. That's the other really amazing part of the choices and the path, when you ended up feeling great about what you did and then created great opportunity for many others to find sort of their own version of greatness in their lives. And
I don't know though, if they come up to me today and said, you could give all this up and instead be remembered as the greatest linebacker in Oklahoma football history, it would be hard.
Absolutely. Once a football fan or once a football player, always a football player, right?
Fair enough.
Yeah, so I guess, Laz, when it comes to, our Chasing Tomorrow podcast, we typically end up our interviews, asking our guests, what's next? What's tomorrow for you? And, Laz, before I get into that question, the two things I think that make you extraordinarily unique. You are in my opinion, you're the most iconic race director in the world's history, because you end up, you didn't just follow, the half marathon and the marathon, playbook. You end up going and creating these opportunities for people to go find their own excellence. And that unto itself is just so unique. And I think that you've done it with, number one, curiosity, but as well too, intelligence. You find a way to go and unlock those boxes. So, just having said that, what's next for you? Like, what's next, or what's in the stores, what's in the cards next for tomorrow for Lazarus Lake?
Well, I'm getting to do something that I've had rolling around in the back of my head for a long time, and I've tried to talk people into it in the past, and they hadn't been interested. But after the way the race across Tennessee went, I've got the support from people who are competent to do things, which is not me. I mean, I wouldn't even be on this podcast if it required on my skill. We're gonna put on a run around the world on land. And you think about the world the way that we always think about it. The equator is the middle of the earth, and it's virtually all water. I mean, there's a thin part of Africa and a thin part of South America, and maybe you hit a few small islands in the South Pacific. But I think while I do my runs, and it's probably a bad thing for the world, and I thought, promise the way we look at directions. We think of, east and west and north and south. They taught you in the school they're the same. They're the four directions, right? But they're not. If you go east or west, if you go east, you'll go east forever. Even when you pass where you started, no matter how many times you start, as long as you go that way, it's east. But if you go north, you only go so far, and then you're going south. And the same thing on the other end. We perceptually have given the world a top and a bottom. Try to even picture the globe any other way. We don't realize it's like the top doesn't exist. We think of the world like it's a tube and not a sphere. So if you turn the globe on its side and have an east pole and a west pole, and you go north and south, goes one direction all the way around, you know what you have? A way to go around the world, 80% landmass. Length of North America, the length of South America, across Antarctica. Right there on the other side of Antarctica is Tasmania, Australia. All of the Indonesian islands in a row, and then up through Southeast Asia and across India, up through the stands, Kazakhstan, all the stands, across Russia, Eastern Europe, and into the tip of Norway. And you know what's right on the other side of the North Pole from the tip of Norway? Not far at all. The top of Alaska. So we've laid out a route. We've done like we did across Tennessee. We've got it all. We've broken the world up into 12 continents or half continents so that it'd be an amount. It'll take relay teams to do this, but it's 29,000 miles on land on roads that exist, except for the one we built across Antarctica. And and so it's a chance for people. They put their team together and they make their way slowly down across the continents and all the way around the world. And as you go, you look at where you are. It's something I started doing a long time ago as kind of a training tool. Virtual runs I did before there was any thought of COVID. I would lay out routes and put them on a spreadsheet in all the cities. And then as I added up my training mileage, see where I got, because then you're motivated. Every time you hit a city, you're motivated to get the miles in and get to the next one.
Mm-hmm.
And so I did the Transcon I did and as a training Transcon long before. I recognized places off the map that, oh, hey, now I'm here in real life. So it's something I think it's fun. I think people would think it's fun. So it's not really a race like even the one across Tennessee for 4 months. People have been hammering themselves, but something where you do as part of your daily routine. It's almost like something that exists under the surface. It's the second thing you're doing. Your secret life. Your fantasy world.
Yeah.
Don't you have a fantasy world that you live in too?
Yeah.
And in your fantasy world, you go all the way around the planet, and as they go, all of the places will come together. How it's all put together. People that do this would come out like I don't know about Canada. In America, they'd be in the top 1% of geographical knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Just because they know what country connects to the next.
Yeah.
Right. That's brilliant. It's, it's an opportunity for people to, like you said, on the back end of what they're doing, they're typically going out for morning runs and getting done that race at the local marathon or whatever that is, but they keep plugging away. And who knows, it might even take a decade for people to run 29,000 miles. But I mean,
for a person by themselves would take forever, but figure a 10-man relay team could do it in 12 to 16 months, which is why we're starting 4 months before the end of the year. And in theory, they have till the end of 2021, although if are winding it down. Then we're going to make them a little medal for each of their regions. So each region you complete with your team, every team member gets the medal. And the medals are in the shape of the continent or region that you crossed. And we'll make a nice little puzzle frame. And they'll fit in there like puzzle pieces to complete your globe with your trip around.
That is so unique.
The hard part we're having right now is making a globe laying on its side. Start trying to look for anything that allows you to see the world as an actual globe. Even the globes that you can buy to put on your desk, what do they got on top? A big cat and a hook, and then the bottom's got a hook in it, and it's underneath. Maybe it's because of the magnetic poles. Maybe it's because it was territory that you really couldn't cross. But everything we've done exists as if the top of the world doesn't exist. It doesn't connect.
I love it. Just
if
look
someone
at it sideways.
If someone asked you what was the closest next land body to the tip of Point Barrow, what would you say? Would you say Norway?
No,
yeah, right.
That's right.
Yeah, exactly.
Fascinating.
You have to turn your head and look at it differently, right? Yeah.
My head's been turned.
Absolutely.
For a while.
Oh yeah, and that's it. Your head's been turned for a while, and this is exactly why, why you're such a great community leader and have been for decades now, providing opportunities for the running community to go find their own excellence. And what's wonderful about the Chasing Tomorrow podcast is that and our final question is what's tomorrow for you? And you're not done. You're going out and creating all these opportunities for us. We want to thank you, Laz, for joining us today. And let's not be strangers, and let's do this again here soon.
Well, I'll be watching you beat yourself to a pulp on the internet, hopefully in a couple months.
Absolutely. Can't wait.
Exactly.
Can't wait.
Gary, thank you so much for your time. I know everyone will love listening to this, and we'll definitely be in touch, and we're out here supporting you all the time.
Well, I appreciate it. But, in the end, if this had all happened to me when I was younger, I would be an insufferable ass. Fortunately, I'm old enough to realize that I'm still actually just an old hillbilly that lives in the woods.
Well, we'll take it. We'll take it. All right.
And around here, you can't swing a dead cat without hitting an old hillbilly that lives in the woods.
Yeah. Well, on that note, Gary, this has been wonderful. We really appreciate your time today.
Thanks very much.
Yeah, I appreciate you talking to me. Y'all have a good one.
All right. See you, Gary.
Thanks a lot, Gary.